Recording.
Our guest speaker this morning is a very close friend of mine, so close that he's practically family. I've known Reverend David for some time now, and his lovely wife, Patty. And they've been a great asset here to Center of Enlightenment. Reverend David has served on various committees, bylaws, membership. He's held multiple positions on the board, and right now he serves as our board president. And in August, he was appointed assistant minister by me. Reverend David was one of the lucky ones, as I was, to be ordained by Reverend Ken Nowaczewski. And Reverend Ken was one of our teachers, and we miss him terribly, but we are grateful for what he shared with us. And so, without any more flowery compliments, let's welcome Reverend David Shaw to the podium, please.
Thank you, Reverend Carol, but we can do like another 10, 15 minutes of compliments, and I don't have to do a sermon then. And Patty and I started attending this church 10 years next month, so we've known each other 10 years, and we've been close for like 8. I used to watch her dog for her sometimes. Good old Zoe. So good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
I had a little frantic morning, but I'm here getting settled down. So we'll see how this goes.
It's all in divine order.
That's right. Any mistakes are on me. Any of the good parts are on Spirit. So over the past few months, I've heard several people at church and out in public saying, I should do this. What is wrong with me? You should do that. It's the only choice. They should do that or they will regret it. Spirit said to me that people needed to be reminded or taught that shoulding on ourselves and others is some of the worst negative thinking that people do. And driving in, I actually saw the church at 8 Mile and Hilton has the "you must be saved" saying, and that's the only one that's worse than shoulding, in my opinion, because that's a flat out imperative telling me what I should do, think, and live, and no thank you. That's why I'm here. Shoulding was first referenced in 1996 and attributed to the psychologist Clayton Barbeau. He described a form of cognitive distortion consisting of telling yourself that you have an obligation to do something different from what you have been doing. Psychologist Albert Ellis wrote, "We get into trouble shoulding ourselves when it takes the form of an automatic thought. In this form, the shoulding comes to us as an abstract, universal obligation, such that if we don't do what we should do, we are wrong and feel guilty." Now, guilt is an important and real experience, but it is a response to a moral failing. To feel guilty about our personal choices all the time, which have no long-term effects, is to actually trivialize the learning power of guilt. Now, I just have to say that I just realized that saying shoulding for 10 minutes, I hope I don't slip. Our daughter said that yesterday. She said, I'd use a different word. I was like, yeah, well, I'm in the sanctuary. The senior ministers will hit me in the head. The one in the Spirit, not Reverend Carol. The implication of shoulding, not just ourselves but others, is contained within this description. That is, we guilt others by opining what they ought to have done and imply that they have failed. Have you ever told yourself, I should exercise? I should practice mindful meditation every day. Or, I should tackle that home project I've been putting off right after church today. Even worse is when you say to others, you should be doing that project perfectly. They should work harder at looking presentable. Some of these goals and expectations may be helpful, yet often when we use should, we reinforce rigid rules from our past and move away from what we truly care about. You may tell yourself that you should do something, but do you genuinely want to do it? And will it benefit you? It is easy to create unrealistic and ungenuine personal expectations based on a sense of should versus your true desires and values. So we need to examine the motivation for this should thought and where it is coming from. We learn a lot from our parents and from society, but not all of it is helpful. For example, accepting the fashion idea that female models have to be thin and voluptuous at the same time causes many physical and emotional problems. Anorexia, bulimia, and obesity all may be partially caused by advertising and social media constantly reinforcing the idea that thin and voluptuous women have the most successful lives. The facts are that women who are self-confident and self-empowered identify as the most satisfied women according to polling, regardless of their physical composition. This is because those women make decisions in their lives based on their self-determined value system, not some set of rules imposed on them by their parents or society. To practice shifting from shoulds to values-based action, first, non-judgmentally notice and name your thoughts and expectations. Are you telling yourself that you should be doing something different with your time, or you should be doing something in a different way? If so, curiously ask yourself if this should is helpful to you in the moment, or is instead based on habit, comparisons, or a rigid rule. That's a good question. Second, cultivate more neutral and balanced thinking. If you are rigidly telling yourself that you should be a certain way, which doesn't leave room for balance or spontaneity or a feeling of humanness, actively practice bringing to mind alternative thoughts that strike a middle point. For example, you may shift from, I should always be perfect, been there, to, I will put in the effort and do what I can in the moment. Am there now. So yay me, progress. I have learned that you can do what you can in the moment. If you could have done it differently, you would have. That's one of the things I've taught myself and taken it internally since I've been attending this church and expanding my enlightenment. The thoughts in your mind and the people that say, you could have done it better, are wrong. If you could have done it better, you would have. And as they say, hindsight is 20/20. It is very useful to review our past actions to improve our future ones, but it's self-destructive to use that review to negatively judge our past actions and beat ourselves up over them. Also, practice shifting from focusing on shoulding to acknowledge what you do appreciate or value about yourself, or even something that you feel neutral about. For example, perhaps you appreciate your kind nature, your thoughtfulness, or your curiosity. Take time to acknowledge these qualities. For example, if you are neutral or even negative about your curiosity, I encourage you to tell yourself, that was the old me. The new me is willing to be positively curious about whatever interests me. And if I wasn't curious, I wouldn't be here as a spiritualist minister today. Oops. Third, take some time to consider what you value, what feels meaningful and important to you. Values are subjective, different for each person. For example, you do not need to value fitness just because it sounds good and it seems like something you should value. Maybe you don't care about fitness and instead value learning. That's fine. There's no right or wrong, no good or bad value. You're simply aiming to clarify your values. Now, where it says no good or bad, I just want to point out that if you're actually making a list of values, if you come to something like, I'm proud that I'm selfish, or I'm proud that I abuse other people, you're going to get a feeling that shouldn't be on your list. Even if you do practice that stuff, those people feel guilt and shame. They just push it down as much as they can. So again, there's no right or wrong, no good or bad. You're simply aiming to clarify your values. Now, in the early 1990s, I was dating someone that used the Franklin Planner time management system to organize her busy life because GM at that time required all their management to use that tool to try and be as productive as possible. Now, by that time in my life, I'd tried to create a couple of time management systems, but they were clunky and I didn't faithfully use them, and so I'd do it for a few months maybe, and then there goes that pile of paper. Now, since this worked for her, I bought a Franklin Planner and started using it. I bought them for, 5 years. And again, I didn't faithfully use the organizer with its monthly, weekly, daily, even annual lists of things to do. But I did faithfully execute the values clarification system that was included in that package. And 30 years later, I still recommend that specific value clarification system to people frequently, at least 5-6 times a year. And today I get to say I'm recommending it to 16 people plus whoever's online. So there goes, my average is going way up this year. Now, this system is to identify a bunch of values that you think are important. Then you prioritize that list from most important to least important. Then you pick your top 3. That's all you get is 3. I must have had 40.
Oh my God.
So even just prioritizing them took me a day and a half. And then 3, sheesh. But it worked. Then in this system, to make sure that you are living your values, you identify actions that you would be doing in your daily life if you were living your values. And once you've identified those top 3, they call them your governing values. And it's the way they say it is, if I was living my governing values, how would I live my life? And then you make a imaginary scenario of what my life would be like living those values. And then you say, okay, well, out of that, what are some actions in there that I would be doing? And you write those down. And then you have to say, how would I get to making those actions part of my daily life if they aren't already? And so then you have to make goals. And you make big general goals. And then you narrow them down to, just for today, what can I do to reach that goal in my life? Because it is one of my governing values. Now, as an adult in my early 30s, when I was going through this, I was letting work get in the way of seeing my parents and my siblings. And I thought that family togetherness was one of my top 3 governing values. So I started calling each of them weekly and made it a priority to get together with them monthly. Because at that point, I might call my parents monthly and see everybody every 6 months. And so that was not very satisfying. The funny thing is, at the same time, one of my brother's workplace encouraged them to use the Franklin Planner system to be more efficient at their jobs. And when he did the values clarification exercise, he also made time for spending with his biological family, one of his top 3. So that was funny, and it worked out. We both pushing it, then people had to get together because the two of us were saying, we're doing it, darn it. So now, fourth and finally, now that you've thought about what I've said, now that you've thought about values, what do I value? I encourage you all to sit down and actually do a values clarification exercise for yourself. Don't say, oh yes, I should do that today. Just, that sounds like a good idea. Maybe I'll get to that someday when it feels right. Now, taking action is very satisfying, and identifying what you value is a great reward that helps you strive for that life you want to live. I am an example of that. Stephen Covey, the creator of the Franklin Planner system, has written many books and has a variety of resources available for free on the internet. For instance, he's the person that wrote The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, which, I don't know, I read it a couple times. I liked 5 of the habits. It didn't speak to me all the way, but everybody's different. I liked one of the other books better, but I don't remember it. That was the early 90s. A long time ago. Oh, I have to do an aside. Yesterday I was sitting there going, because Patty's daughter was born today in 1983. I'm like, that's 40 years ago. My gosh. 90s is 30 years ago. It's like, man, 65. I'm getting up there. In addition to Covey's stuff, materials, there's also lots of paper, audio, and digital books on values clarification in your local library. So you don't even have to buy stuff to research this. It's there for free. And when I made my first 2 time management systems, that's what I used, was stuff from the library. There was a person named Richard Bowles that did a What Color is Your Parachute, which was a job hunting thing, but that was a subset of a bigger thing that he called the boxes of life, which is learn, work, play. And typically we spend the first third of our life learning. We spend the next almost 2/3 working, and then what little time we left have at the end, we play. And he's like, no. Do all 3 all the way through. A balanced life. And then getting back to the topic, shoulding, I was trying to avoid being negative, and Reverend Carol encouraged me, remember the nonviolent communication workshop? We want to be positive. So that's why I tried to be positive and give you some ways to get through this stuff. I found literally dozens of articles on the psychology of shoulding on the internet. I read like 4 of them through, and I don't know, another 10 I scanned. Every single one I read, researching for this sermon, had useful information. So I couldn't decide which ones to recommend. So I just say, type in shoulding on yourself, and the ones that pop up, whatever Spirit suggests you click on, do it. Because that's what I do. That's where I get my research. That's where I get my songs. I just say, okay, Spirit, show me what I need to know. I think it works pretty good. I get compliments. People say, that touched me, thank you. So I recommend that you use Spirit in this and all other endeavors in your life. Thank you for your time, and thank you for your attention.
Thank you.